Hello friends, it's me, and today let's watch what is the right way to reheat pizza from the food theorists. Together, let's go. Let's start. Thank you.
You, yes you, are reheating your pizza wrong. Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory, where I have made a deliciously horrible mistake. See,
Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory.
against my better half's better judgment, I may have ordered just a tad too much pizza. I did have an entire one last night, but now I'm left with this. So yeah, I have enough pizza to put the Ninja Turtles in a food coma. Cheddar in a half shell. Point is, I gotta make my way through all these leftovers. But I've decided not to let this opportunity go to waste because I, once and for all, am gonna find out what the best method for reheating pizza is. I'm gonna look at 3 factors: taste, texture, and time. Ooh, 3.
I like his style, Take this opportunity to make a theory video instead of getting scolded by your partner, so...
T's? I made that up right off the rip right there. Originally, it was like flavor, texture, and time, but then I made it into the 3 T's. All right, we might keep this in. Who knows?
To quote Amy over on Style Theory, listen, I had a long day ahead of me and I was delirious, okay? So, we have the 3 T's. For starters, the reheated pizza must still taste like the original pizza the next day. We want our method to preserve the original flavor of the pizza, not leave us with a bland, stale, or burnt triangle of disappointment. We also have to keep texture in mind. Flavor doesn't mean anything if the texture of your pizza is trash. You know what I'm talking about. Spongy dough, tough, chewy crust, greasy, tasteless, congealed cheese. Even the most delicious tasting pizza in the world will be gross if the texture just isn't right. Again, we're gonna want the cooking method we use to restore as much of the original flavor and texture of the pizza as possible. That includes the crispiness of the crust and the stretchiness of the cheese. Lastly, we're gonna be scoring each method on how easy and convenient they are. Cause let's be real, if I'm lazy enough to order a pizza instead of cooking on a Friday night, I'm also probably gonna be feeling too lazy to recook a slice come Saturday morning.
Now, time is kind of a twofer here because it's time and effort. It doesn't really matter as much if something takes a long time, if I can just leave it and forget it until it's time to take it out. Whereas something might take a lot of effort in a short amount of time, but I have to be paying attention to the timer, the amount of water left, or the pizza will burn, and it's just too complicated.
As for our appliances, today we're testing the microwave, the oven, the air fryer, the skillet, and a secret time-tested technique that the goats and kids swear by. But before we begin air frying and microwaving, we got to understand what happens to a pizza when it's refrigerated overnight. Like it or not, the next day flavor changes are inevitable, and there's not really a whole lot you can do to prevent them from happening. Luckily, tomato sauce is one of the food items that might actually help your pizza taste better the next day. When pizza sauce cools overnight, the ingredients essentially have more time to marinate, just like it would if you were cooking it in a slow marinade. The result is a fuller tasting, thicker, richer tomato sauce nestled beneath all that cheese. Not to reheat the nachos of previous food theory videos, but we also have to account for retrogradation of the dough's starches. Retrogradation changes the sugar content and texture of pizza as it cools overnight. Both cooking and cooling cause the food's starch molecules to pack themselves tightly together, which makes them more difficult to digest. As this occurs, some of the starch in your food becomes resistant, which means that its sugar molecules aren't as easily broken apart and absorbed into your bloodstream as they would have been pre-cooling. Resistant starches are naturally found in plant foods like beans, potatoes, whole grains, nuts, seeds, bananas, and plantains. But cooling your food overnight can cause additional resistant starches to form. Believe it or not, creating more resistant starches in your food actually makes them healthier for you. Because resistant starches aren't easily digested, they tend to spike your blood sugar much less than regular starch does. See, pizza for breakfast is part of a balanced diet. Refrigeration is also going to significantly affect all that tasty cheese. The stretchiness of cheese is actually one of the most important factors in the pizza devouring experience. And not just because it looks mouth-wateringly good to pull a couple slices apart. Stretchability is defined as the ability of cheese to form fibrous strands that are able to stretch without breaking. In fact, mozzarella is specifically used on pizza, not just for its flavor, but because because it has one of the highest stretchability factors among all cheeses. During the mozzarella manufacturing process, the cheese is stretched in hot water using a mechanical mixer. This repeated pulling results in high stretchability as the proteins are aligned parallel into fibers with the cheese's fat. As cheese matures, lactic acid fermentation gradually dissolves the bond between calcium and protein structures. That's why high acid cheeses like feta, ricotta, or cottage cheese aren't stretchy and don't melt as easily as mozzarella. But cheese with too little lactic acid fermentation won't melt at all. Halloumi cheese, which is low in acid, also has an equally restricted melting factor. You really need to find that sweet spot of the right acidity to get that perfect melty, stretchy cheese, and mozzarella checks every box. Unfortunately for pizza, and my stomach, refrigeration significantly decreases the stretchability of cheese, which is why the cheese on a cold slice of pizza is more condensed and congealed than a fresh, hot slice. After sitting in the fridge all night, proteolysis occurs, a process that breaks down protein and removes damaged cells, causing the cheese to soften, weaken, and lose its stretchiness. The longer your pizza chills, the more moisture it loses, drying out the cheese and also lessening its stretchiness. That's why a cube of fresh, wet mozzarella is the best cheese to use in the first place to top your pie. So to recap, the fridge is both a magical and hellish place to store your leftover pizza. On one hand, it'll thicken and enrichen the tomato sauce and form resistant starches. On the other hand, it'll lose its stretchability the longer it's in there. Here's the thing, mastering this craft of reheating pizza is gonna take a while. But while I wait, guess what fits right in? Squeezing in rounds of Ace Craft's Sky Hero. You know, a different kind of craft. Tom and I have been obsessed with this game. Seriously, I think the co-op mode is the only time him and I work together this well. The co-op mode reminds me of the good old days of going to the arcade and spending hours bumping shoulders and yelling with a friend. I realize how old that makes me sound, but come on, retro's cool now. And speaking of retro, look at these graphics. The rubber hose animation makes you feel like you're smack dab in the middle of a cartoon straight out of the 1930s. There's something so charming and rare about this aesthetic, especially in a bullet hell style game. But the best part for me, especially with how busy I am, is that the games don't last longer than 5 minutes. It's even shorter than microwaving leftovers. Simple controls make it easy to dive in anywhere. Stuck in line for tacos, waiting for a burger? Boom! Boss battle conquered before your number's called. You get all the action and heart-pumping anxiety of failure in nice short games so that you feel like you actually accomplish something every time you play. Which, by the way, the gameplay introduces one of my favorite comebacks I give Tom that drives him crazy. I'm rubber, he's glue. And in this game, dodging isn't your only option. You can actually absorb bullets and launch them back at enemies. It's literally like you're rubber and they're glue. So don't be a Sky Zero, be a Sky Hero, and go to the description, click the link, or scan the QR code on screen to download the game today. It's available on iOS and Android, so get your friend or arch rival and play like you're back in the arcade. Thanks again to Acecraft's Sky Hero for sponsoring today's episode. Now, I think my oven's preheated.
So, thank you so much for supporting this episode from the Food Tourist. Thank you.
First off, we're starting with a tried and true classic, the microwave. Now, we're actually gonna do 2 methods involving the microwave. One, we're gonna stick a slice in by itself for about a minute, take it out, no muss, no fuss. That's how Dad did it, that's how America does it, and it's worked out pretty well so far. The other method is sticking another slice in there with a glass of water, which should help with the moisture and therefore sogginess and chewiness of the pizza. So let's get started.
To understand why expert pizza YOLOs sneer at the idea of using radiation boxes to zap up a slice, we gotta dive into how exactly our often most used appliance works. Microwaves use non-ionizing radiation, which will not cause changes to your DNA, unlike ionizing radiation. It can, however, still burn you. Its technology is specifically designed to alter the texture and taste of the food it heats. And microwave isn't just the name of the item, it's the form of energy. It's invisible to the human eye and falls in length between radio and infrared waves. We've talked about exactly how they work in a previous episode, but TLDW, microwaves cook the outside of the food, and the heat from that transfers to the inside, cooking it via heat transfer. This is exactly why Hot Pockets are so dicey. The thickness of their crust prevents an even cook inside, which is why sometimes you bite into an iceberg disguised as a pepperoni, and other times your mouth is filled with the drippings of Satan's lava lamp. But here's why microwaving your food turns it into a floppy, chewy mess. As the water molecules in the food heat up, they release as steam. Being trapped in the microwave with hot moisture removes all semblance semblance of crispiness from your pizza, making the crust feel soggier than a sweaty sock. Steam cooking also makes proteins denser, restricting the cheese from stretching as much as it could if it were heated by another method.
Okay, so the pizza is done. Let's take it out. Oh, the plate's not that hot. Ooh. There was a weird noise there. I think I just broke my microwave. So right off the rip, we see a lot of moisture all over the plate. But the other thing we notice is that there is a decent amount of fat pooling on the top. Now, the reason for this is because the microwave is actually changing the composition of the fats in the cheese. This is something called lipolysis.
Lipolysis is where the triglyceride fats break down into free fatty acids and glycerol. This change in molecular structure leaks out some fats. But don't be fooled, just because microwaving a meal causes it to technically have less fat, it's also turning healthy fats into unhealthy fats. Now, reheating once is going to do negligible damage, but keep this in mind if for some reason you keep reheating the same slice over and over again.
So let's try this out because I can already tell there's a decent amount of sponginess and chewiness that's about to happen, but let's see how the taste is. The crust is way chewier. You don't really have any sort of crunchiness at all. It's lost a lot of flavor. Honestly, like I know I'm eating a pizza, but I can't taste that I'm eating a pizza. On a scale of 1 to 5, I'm gonna have to put this at like a 2 because there's a little bit in the cheese, but as soon as you get to the crust and the rest of the dough, there's just nothing there. In terms of texture, it is chewy. It is exactly what you don't want. It's spongy. There's not really much moisture in the crust. It's weirdly dry. And the cheese itself has congealed and is not a good texture. This is also gonna be a 2. Now, in terms of time, we ended up only doing 30 seconds in the microwave. 1 minute in mine was way too much. That has to be a 5. That's kind of the gold standard. You get nice hot pizza in 30 seconds. As long as you don't care too much about the flavor or the texture. Now, method number 2 with the microwave was actually recommended highly by Lee and a million other people on the internet, and that is putting a glass of water in with the slice of pizza. I don't see how this is gonna help, but let's do it. Slice, water goes in, so we're just gonna put it right next to it and hope for the best. And we're dancing. We're dancing, we're dancing, we're in the dun-dun-dun. Boop, 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 boop. Throw it back, throw it back. Oh, what? Bring it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Right off the rip, you can see that there's almost no moisture around the pizza on the plate. Like, this is a stark difference from the first time around. Underneath, there was a lot of moisture, but around on the plate, there was nothing. It feels less spongy. And honestly, kind of looks good. Let's see. Whoa!
Now, this was fascinating to me because I never in a million years expected a sad glass of water to actually do anything to help the cook of the pizza. But what's occurring here is that the glass of water acts as a steam decoy, in a sense. Because the microwave energy is now also heating the water in the cup, some of that microwave power is diverted away from the pizza, slowing down how fast it cooks. And lower energy means a less soggy slice. On top of that, the cup of water releases extra moisture into the microwave environment, which can help keep the cheese from turning rubbery.
That is a stark difference in the two flavors. The cheese has retained a lot of the moisture and it's not as congealed and therefore has a lot of flavor. It's not perfect, but honestly, that is not bad. The crust has maintained a lot of its flavor. Listen, I can't go as high as a 4. That is a 3.5. I'm shocked by this. In terms of texture, it's still a little spongy. There's no crisp to it, but it's not as dry. Is it ideal? Not really. Is it as good as the night before? Not really either, but it's good enough to get away with a 3. Now, in terms of time, this is 100% a 5 because all it took was getting a glass of water, which is another 10 seconds. But you put it in there for 30 seconds and you get an incredibly serviceable slice of pizza. That is fantastic. Right now, that's the one to beat for me, but let's move on. So we're moving away from the microwave and to the oven. And here, once again, we're gonna be looking at 2 methods. The first one is a shorter cook time when you just can't wait to chow down. And the second is going to be a much longer one if you have time to perfect the cook. Let's get started with the shorter one, shall we?
For the quick oven method, we're gonna preheat to 400 degrees. When it's ready, put the pizza in and set a timer for 10 minutes. In theory, food theory, this method will help retain the crispiness of the crust because it bakes both the pizza and the moisture inside of it more evenly than in the microwave. The downside here is that we risk drying out the cheese and reducing its stretchiness.
Okay, so we have just taken it out of the oven. I have to say, it looks a lot more orange and a lot more kind of burnt than anything else. If you look at the non-heated slice versus the heated slice, there is a stark difference in color. Now, the oven slice is very hard right now. There's like no movement in here whatsoever, which is not necessarily good because I feel like this is gonna be a lot harder and drier. Kind of like when bread has been left out for too many days and it's just...
It's actually really similar to what happened in the first microwave method, and that's because the same fat breakdown that happened with the microwave technique is also happening here, only it's slightly less noticeable because it isn't happening rapidly.
Let's see. In terms of the flavor, it's very reminiscent of the first microwave method. I know I'm chewing on something, but there's no flavor there. So the end result ends up being the same. It's lacking in a lot of flavor. Let's see the crust. Damn near broke a tooth right there. It's very dense. It does have more flavor than the first microwave method in the crust. The garlic is still there. Cheese, not so much. Like all the moisture has just been dried out of here. From a flavor perspective, honestly, this is like a 2. There's a little more flavor in the crust, but the cheese and the rest of the pizza is just not it. In terms of the texture, honestly, for me, this is gonna be a 1. I almost prefer a soggier taste than a dense, dry one. At least in the microwave, I didn't feel like I was gonna break a tooth on it. It's nice, but it's so dense and dry. I feel like I need water right now. And you have the worst parts of the microwave cheese. Yeah, this is a 1. This is not it. In terms of time, it was preheating the oven and then sticking it in there. So like maybe 13 minutes total. It's not the worst thing in the world and you just stick it on the rack. I'll give this a 3 for time because it's very little effort, a little more time than you would like, but not the worst thing in the world. Unfortunately, the end result, look at that. The end result is just not what you want. It's not it, fam. Let's move on.
Can you imagine what happens if like, bam, 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 the plate crack? It's like, no! But it proves the point. No!
To the long method. Now, I have been preheating this bad boy for an hour at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, as high as my oven allows. But here's the twist. I've also put my pizza stone in there, and it's been in there the entire time, so it is scalding hot. What we're gonna do is put a slice of pizza directly onto the pizza stone for 5 minutes and see what we get.
Now, I've been dying for an excuse to use a pizza stone for a video. The idea behind them is that they get preheated with the oven, and when the pizza is placed on them, it cooks the base of the pizza evenly while also drawing out moisture to prevent the soggies. If my hunch is correct, this should also help in the reheating process, and we might even get a nice char. When we're talking about taste and new flavors being added to a pizza, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. For example, reheating a slice just right might add a smoky, charred flavor that'll bring the crust back to life. Unlike burning, which overcooks the food past the point of being edible, charring only partially burns or browns the food. This is the famous Maillard effect. We've talked about it.
Wait. Okay, what?
With the oven, and when the pizza is placed on them, it cooks the base of the pizza evenly while also drawing out moisture to prevent the soggies. If my hunch is correct, this should also help in the reheating process, and we might even get a nice char. When we're talking about taste and new flavors being added to a pizza, it isn't necessarily a bad thing. For example, reheating a slice just right might add a smoky, charred flavor that'll bring the crust back to life. Unlike burning, which overcooks the food past the point of being edible, charring only partially burns or browns the food. This is the famous Maillard effect. We've talked about it before.
Maillard effect.
At length. But what can I say? More reheated nachos making it into my reheated pizza vid. But basically, the Maillard reaction is a chemical reaction that occurs between amino acids and sugars, leading to caramelization, browning, and development in flavor and aroma. Not to be confused with the Maillard reaction, which happens when Daffy Duck declares it's rabbit season. But there's a catch to look out for. Many pizzas are
I can't believe it. He actually pronounced it rabbit season, become rabbit season.
purposefully charred on the bottom to give it that smoky taste the first time around. If you go too far in reheating a pre-charred pizza, it can actually cause an acrid tasting soot to form on the dough of your pizza. Needless to say, we're not trying to inhale an ashtray here. We're not Tom Maluka. Shout out to my niche stage magician fans out there. And if that's you, make sure to perform my favorite trick and click that subscribe button.
Now this looks...
Thank you so much. Subscribe. Thank you.
Amazing. It feels like it's had color and life injected back into it. Look at this, look at this. It's gonna be nice and crispy. And I know nowadays everyone's like, oh my God, no flop. It's because they're all copying a certain somebody that we're talking about on the channel. A little flop is good, but what you want with that flop is crunch and crispiness at the bottom. So let's see. Wow, 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 wow. Wow, this is amazing. The crisp at the bottom, the cheese, a little bit of fat that's come back up and bubbled up to the top and added moisture that way, but not like in the microwave where the fat was different and the cheese was congealed. Here, the cheese feels like it's been freshly melted. Bro, it's so good. This, on a scale of 1 to 5, from a flavor perspective, legitimately, 5. Texture, 5. You have moisture in the cheese and in the dough underneath. It's not spongy. The crust itself is nice and fluffy. That's the biggest thing. With the other ones, it just wasn't as fluffy. It was dense. This feels airy again. This is a 5 and a 5. Let's talk about time and effort. This took a long time. This was an hour and 5 minutes if you think about it. It was an hour to preheat and get up to temperature and then 5 minutes of the slice in the oven. That's not ideal. Is it the worst thing in the world? No, because you can put it in there and forget about it for an hour, but here's the kicker. Without the pizza stone, this method is a lot less effective. And that right there is a lot of effort. If you don't have a pizza stone, you have to get a pizza stone. Highly recommended just while we're here, but it's still a lot of effort to buy one and get one and put it in the oven, store it, blah, 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 all that stuff. I had to get this out from a bunch of stuff and put it in there. Honestly, the effort is deceiving. Is it worth it? I would say yes, but that doesn't mean that this gets away scot-free. I think from a time and effort perspective, this is gonna get a 1.5 out of 5. The long time might not have been an issue if we didn't have to get a full pizza stone to put in there and all that jazz. But we're not done and there's a lot more pizza to have, so let's move on. I was only half kidding in the intro. I just wanna see if it'll work. I'm gonna blow dry the pizza for a minute and see what changes occur. And let's go.
No way!
Let's see what's changed here. It's lukewarm at the bottom. Some heat has transferred down. It's so dry. It's barely done anything. The crust is straight up cold. I will be honest, it didn't remove any flavor. The microwave and the short oven cook straight up removed flavor. This
Yeah, the heat didn't penetrate much. Sorry.
didn't. It's just like lukewarm. It's not really hot. I'll give it a 2 for flavor. It's just a little weird because like there are patches that are warmer than others. In terms of texture, it's really dry. The hot air blowing dried out pretty much anything that could have been on there for moisture. I'll give it a 2 as well. In terms of time and effort, it only took a minute, but I had to hold the hairdryer and I had to hold it above. You saw what happened. If I started dropping my hand, it would go in a circle. So that's gonna be a 1. You've let me down, hairdryer, for the first time in your life. Let's move on.
Sorry.
And now it's time to move on to the 21st century, shall we? I should have done this before. It's time to duel with the air fryer. It's time to...
You can tell that Santi is a very big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Like practically every single 2 to 3 episodes, there is at least one Yu-Gi-Oh! Reference.
Whatever. I tried being cute.
Using the air fryer to reheat leftovers of any kind is a god tier move in terms of a short cooking time and the resulting excellent crispiness. Unlike a microwave, an air fryer blasts the surface of the pizza with a constant stream of very hot, dry air. That does 2 things at once. It evaporates surface moisture quickly, so instead of trapping steam in the crust, it lets it escape before it can make things soggy. And it crisps before it dries. The heat is intense enough to brown and re-crisp the outer crust and melt the cheese before the interior has time to lose too much moisture. It's all about the speed and direction of heat transfer, which is exactly why the hairdryer failed me.
Looks pretty good. Okay, so right off the rip, this is kind of an in-between. Between the short oven cook and the first microwave method and the long oven cook. Where the long oven cook was a 5 and the short microwave cook was like a 1 or a 2. This is honestly very middle of the road because the flavor isn't fully there. There is flavor in the cheese, there is moisture, a lot of flavor left in the crust. It's not nearly as dense as the short oven cook time method. It's airy, not as airy as the long, but this is a good compromise. I'm gonna say flavor-wise, really really solid. This is a 4. I wouldn't even say middle of the road. The crust especially remains very flavorful. The cheese is honestly fine. It's moist, which is nice. When it comes to texture, I'm gonna give it a 4 because here's the thing. This is probably the closest to how it came last night, like when it was fresh. The crust is airy. It's not super crispy underneath the cheese, but it's not soggy. It's not super chewy. Let me do that without food in my mouth. The crust is crusting. It's a little airy, a little dense, kind of like it's been sitting in the box for half an hour from the restaurant to my place. The dough underneath the cheese, not as crispy as the oven cook, but it's not soggy either. The cheese as a texture is just fine. So I'm honestly gonna give this a 4. Now, in terms of time and effort, no preheat time. 5 minutes for this kind of a result, that's a 5, easily. But it's time to stop relying on appliances and start relying on my chef skills. Let's move on to the skillet. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I have a pizza headache, but we're on to the final round, which is using...
In Chinese, there's a saying called 自作孽不可活. You did this to yourself. There is too much pizza for one single day, for one individual. Sorry.
The skillet. This is kind of the preferred method for a lot.
Technically speaking, if you are capable of doing that, it's just right. But do our best to split it into different meals, shall we? Thank you.
A lot of like YouTube food creators out there, they all swear by this. So let's see how it works out.
To start, place your slice of pizza on a cold pan and heat over medium-low heat for 2 to 3 minutes. Next, add a shot glass full of water to the pan and cover for about 5 more minutes. There is a little bit of variance here. Some people will do a preheated pan with some oil, but this is the most common variant I've found. Now, the reason why this is the most complex to explain is because there's a lot of different factors at play here. Different stoves will require different cook times, and you might have to play around with the settings of your burners to find the sweet spot. I even had a hard time with it for the first slice.
Okay, so I think we may have used just a bit too much water here. Listen, the flavor's good. The cheese on top has melted, but the bottom was way too wet. So let's run it back and try it again.
User error really isn't helping the time and effort score here, but hopefully using an ice cube like I've seen some people do online will give us the perfect amount of water instead of accidentally adding too much.
What I will say is that the colors look much more vibrant here than in pretty much any other reheating method. The sauce is popping a little bit more. The cheese isn't as orange. The crust isn't as brown. And look at that, it's looking pretty good. So let's, oh man, wow, okay. The crispiness of the crust of the dough underneath the cheese is a different ballgame. I thought looking at it that it was still gonna be a little soggy, and it is a little bit. The crust is a little more greasy than I expected it to be. It is a little chewier than I would like it to be. It's airy, but chewy. Underneath the cheese, it's perfect. You got that nice little crunch as you bite in. The cheese is remelted, not as much as I would like, and I think this really comes down to the effort of the skillet method, but we'll get there. In terms of flavor, the cheese hasn't lost any flavor. The crust hasn't lost any flavor. I'm gonna give this a 4.5, just because it doesn't reach the levels of the long cook oven method. It just doesn't feel as fresh. It does feel like a reheated pizza, but a 4.5 is a fantastic score. When it comes to the texture, I think I'm gonna have to give this a 4 because the crust is a little chewier than I would like. It's airy, which is nice, but it's missing that nice crunchiness. The saving grace here is the crisp of the dough underneath the cheese and a little bit of the cheese itself. Once again, this tastes eerily similar to how it would if it came straight out the box the night before. That's a 4. But let's talk about time and effort. Because listen, as far as time goes, this took less than 10 minutes. It took a little bit more than the air fryer, but less than the short oven cook method. Just from that perspective, that's a win. The problem is the complication that comes.
Hey, don't. A win is still a win. Like, let's celebrate. Yeah.
With the actual
But granted, there's some caveats. Sorry.
skill needed. There's a lot of variables going on here. You have the stove. Now mine is electric, so it took me a little bit to find the right heat for the pan, whereas if it were gas, it's a little easier to gauge. The second thing is the amount of water. You don't want to put too much water or else your piece will come out really, really soggy. Now with the ice cube method, it did work a lot better, but it wasn't quite perfect. It requires a little more finagling for me to get that perfect slice, and that right there is a lot of effort just to reheat one slice of pizza. And therein lies the second issue. one slice. Every other method so far, we have only done one slice, but you could do more. In the microwave, you could fit 2 or 3 slices. In the oven, you could fit the entire pizza. In the air fryer, you could maybe fit half or the entire pizza. But on the skillet, that's one slice max with this method. And come on, if I want to eat more than one slice, I'm not going to be doing this for every individual slice. So as far as time and effort goes, this is going to have to be a 2 just because of how complicated and skill intensive the method is. But with all that said, take it away, VO me.
All right, we've got one last method worth trying out.
So thank you so much, IRL Santi. Thank you so much, VO Santi. IRL means in real life Santi. Okay, so IRL means in real life Santi, and VO means voice over Santi. So.
I might be stuffed silly, but I've got to pay my respects to one of the best leftover pizza eating methods there is.
Leftover pizza is a classic. And listen, I know that's not the point of the episode, which is why I didn't factor in to the judging. But man, sometimes cold pizza, it's different. Come on, try it. You know you want to.
For the truly lazy, eating a slice of cold pizza fresh out of the fridge never fails to disappoint. But okay, cold pizza is delicious, but it's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to get you to re-examine the way you reheat your pizza, and to give you all the tools you need to start appreciating your leftovers more. If you want it quick and easy without needing top-notch quality, the microwave with a glass of water is the best option for you. Want to splurge a bit and got some time on your hands? I cannot recommend the long oven method with a pizza stone enough. It legit tasted better than the night before. This one is especially good if you're trying to reheat multiple slices or an entire leftover pizza. And finally, wanna gourmet it up with a skillet? It'll take some practice, but it'll leave you with a delicious slice.
So let me know in the comments below what reheating methods you use so we can run this episode back with your suggestions. I would love to hear from
Thank you so much. Comment down below. Thank you. Thank you.
you. But for now, remember that it's just a theory, a food theory. Buen provecho.
And hey, want to see me fix Little Caesar's Fantastic Four pizza? Make sure to click the link on the screen now. And as always, I'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this video from the food theories. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Thank you so much. Subscribe. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Subscribe.